A special thank you to each of our subscribers who make this channel possible. Here's today's story. In a shocking revelation, the Israeli military has acknowledged professional failures in the tragic attack that resulted in the deaths of 15 emergency workers in Gaza last month. The incident, which occurred late March, has raised serious questions about the conduct of Israeli forces during military operations in densely populated areas. The Israeli army described the killings as a professional error after a review of the incident, which has been met with skepticism from humanitarian organizations and international observers. The bodies of 14 humanitarian workers were discovered in a mass grave, buried alongside their damaged vehicles, a week after they were targeted by Israeli fire. One additional body was found a few days prior. In an attempt to clarify their actions, the military stated that they had shrouded the bodies with cloth and sand to protect them until humanitarian organizations could retrieve them. However, access to the site was blocked for several days, prompting accusations of a cover-up. A harrowing video found on the phone of slain paramedic Rifat Radwan captured the final moments of the team. The footage, filmed from inside one of the last two ambulances to leave, showed emergency vehicles clearly marked with flashing lights. It depicted a chaotic scene as the vehicles approached an ambulance and bodies on the roadside. First responders exited their vehicles, only to be met with a hail of gunfire. Radwan's last words were a plea for forgiveness and the recitation of the Islamic declaration of faith before he succumbed to his injuries. Following the investigation, the Israeli military characterized the incident as a result of operational misunderstandings. Major General Yoav Har-Even, who led the review, reported that 2 responders were killed in an initial shooting, while 12 others were killed in subsequent fire. The military claimed that troops believed they were under threat from enemy forces, which led to the tragic misidentification of the emergency vehicles. Despite the military's findings, no personnel have been charged, leading to further outrage. A deputy commander was dismissed for providing an incomplete report, and a commanding officer received a reprimand. The military's statement insisted that the bulldozing of the bodies and vehicles was not an attempt to conceal the attack, but rather a measure taken during a combat situation. Critics have pointed out that the military's account contradicts evidence gathered from the video and testimonies from witnesses. Jonathan Whitall, head of the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, OCHA, in the Palestinian territory, emphasized that the first responders were clearly identifiable in their uniforms and were unarmed at the time of the attack. He stated, "A lack of real accountability undermines international law and makes the world a more dangerous place." The Palestinian Red Crescent Society, PRCS, has vehemently rejected the findings of the Israeli investigation, labeling it full of lies. They argue that the report shifts responsibility onto individual errors rather than addressing systemic issues within the military. PRCS President Yunus Al-Khatib expressed disbelief over why soldiers would bury the bodies of paramedics, asserting that the evidence, including the video, disproves the military's narrative. The Israeli military's defense has historically relied on claims that Hamas uses civilian infrastructure, including ambulances, to carry out operations. However, the investigation's findings did not substantiate these claims, as no weapons were found in any of the vehicles involved. An Israeli military official stated that the bodies were covered with sand and cloth to preserve them until they could be safely retrieved by international organizations. Human rights groups and international legal experts have criticized Israel's internal reviews, citing a lack of independence and transparency. The military has a track record of denying wrongdoing and often blames lower-ranking individuals for larger systemic failures. This pattern has raised concerns about the genuine commitment to accountability within the Israeli armed forces. As the conflict in Gaza continues, with over 51,201 reported deaths since the escalation began, calls for an independent investigation into the incident have intensified. The international community remains watchful as the situation unfolds and the implications of military actions in civilian contexts become increasingly dire. The Israeli military's admission of professional failures may be a step towards accountability, but for many, it is insufficient in the face of overwhelming evidence and the continuing humanitarian crisis in Gaza. That's all for this story. We upload videos every day covering many different subjects, so hit that subscribe button to stay informed. Thanks for watching.